So let's get one thing straight. It isn't VAR that's the issue. It's the people who watch the TVs and do the analysis of VAR that are the issue. It's human error, plain and simple. Or is it human bias? Who knows? See you on the other side. So it has now come out the 26 incidents in recent time, which were used, VAR was used, have proved to be inaccurate, have proved to be wrong. That is the conclusion of the review panel that have looked at some of the VAR decisions made over recent SPL games. Rangers have had two decisions that were made against them using VAR deemed to be wrong. The first one, obviously, was the penalty incident against Kilmarnock at Rugby Park. Evidently, the ball which hit John Lundstrom on the arm should not have been given as a penalty. Now, the whole handball rule area is an absolute grey area, a massive grey area, and I think needs a massive Europe-wide review over what is a handball, what is not a handball. There are too many incidences happening now where things are being given as handball that in the past would never have been given as handball. I mean, you look at, for example, the Connor Goldson one against Celtic, his arm is up. Is that a penalty or not? Under the new interpretation, yes, it is. Under the old interpretation, probably wouldn't have been given. You go to the Manchester United Coventry semi-final, the Coventry penalty to give them the equaliser. For me, never a penalty. The guy's arm's by his side. What is he supposed to do with it? He hits his arm. A penalty is given. It's just a decision. It's a whole can of worms that needs to be looked at. So it's good, I suppose, that this has been reviewed. But you know what would have happened if that game had ended 1-1 or we'd lost that game 1-0 or you know that game could have gone. It could cost you a title at the end of the day. You know, especially when you're in a title race that is so tight. These decisions have got to be got right. We'll just discuss a little bit about how we might do that towards the end of the video. The second incident that was ruled as wrong was the sending off of Dujon Sterling against Aberdeen on February the 6th. Now, if you remember, Sterling went flying into a tackle. He slipped before he made contact. I think it's the guy who was called Mackenzie. He did not have studs up. He was not out of control. He was not off the ground. He was just going to put in a hard tackle, which he missed and took the guy instead. And at the time, I think a lot of analysts and a lot of fans thought very much the same, that it was little more than a yellow card. The VAR decision was upheld when Don Robertson was called to go to the monitor. The red card was not overturned; it was upheld, and Sterling was sent off. He then obviously missed the rest of that game and missed two subsequent games. What makes this all the worse for me in terms of this red card decision is the fact that not only did the ref get this wholly wrong, and we know there are questions over Don Robertson and his ability to referee and his standard of his refereeing, and I think he is one of the worst referees in Scotland, which, you know, if you consider you've got Nick Walsh, Willie Collum and Kevin Clancy, is quite a title to hold. I mean, you've got to admit, I suppose, that Nick Walsh, Willie Collum, Don Robertson and Kevin Clancy are probably the four worst referees in Scotland. And I think the standard of refereeing in Scotland in general is absolutely shocking. I mean, you've only got to look at the fact that UEFA have not used any Scottish referees for Euro 2024 and have actually called up an Argentinian referee rather than use a Scottish referee at the tournament. I mean, that does sort of speak volumes about the standard of refereeing in Scotland. But what makes this all the worse, that it has now been overturned, is the fact that Rangers then subsequently appealed this decision to the SFA. The SFA upheld Don Robertson's decision to send off Dujon Sterling. Now, this kind of raises a huge question over the use of VAR and over the people who watch the screens in VAR, and also the ability of the referees and also the ability of the governing body to run the game. You know, if for example, that decision had been upheld on the field and then the referee goes to the monitor, watches it and says, fair enough, it's a yellow card, overturns it, fair enough, that's great. If he doesn't, but then it goes to the appeal, the SFA re-watch the incident, saying, no, it wasn't a red card, it was a yellow card, overturn the ref's decision, fair enough. But for the fact that it went through three reviews, in effect, the initial review by the referee, the VAR review, and then the SFA appeal, and all three concluded the same thing, that it was a red card. That now, after a panel of experts, of ex-refs, ex-players, and analysts and others have watched this and said, no, it wasn't a red card, it raises a massive question for me over the ability of the SFA to run referees, over the ability of referees to actually referee games, and over the people who, and this is the one thing that always annoys me about people who criticize VAR. There is nothing wrong with the technology. The VAR technology itself is faultless. Okay, the computers, the lines, the analytics, the analysis software is unfaultable. It is perfect. The problem is the people who are watching the screens who ultimately take the decision based on what they watch. The computer doesn't take the decision. The computer shows you the image. And I would argue having an AI computer that makes its own decision would probably be a better thing anyway, because the computer would be less likely to be biased and less likely to make mistakes. It's the human idiots that watch the TV screens that make the mistakes. Now, like I said, what really winds, I mean, the one against Kilmarnock, fine, it was wrong, okay, we accept that, we move on, and I just kind of accept that one now, and I just kind of go, yeah, that happens, it happens. But one that really annoys me, and it is getting to me, is this decision over Sterling's red card, and the fact that it went through 2 reviews and 3 views, and still a red card was upheld. Yet now, after a thorough review by a panel of people who are experts in the game, watching the game, saying it wasn't a red card. So it does beg a question over, number one, the talent and the quality of refereeing in Scotland. Number two, the ability of the SFA to impartially review its own referees in terms of upholding decisions. Now, there's been a number of decisions this year where referees have had their decisions reviewed by the SFA, and I think in the vast majority of those decisions, the SFA have backed the referee. Now, yes, I applaud them for backing their workforce. It's what you would do as a manager. You back your workforce. Maybe in private, you then say you're an idiot. But in a game like this, in a tournament that is critical, where you are losing players, and some teams cannot afford, with the depth of their squad, to lose these players for any length of time, for either 2-3 games, you know, why are we still getting this wrong? Why are these panels still unable to get things right? Why are the SFA still massively unable to actually get a decision correct on overturning a quite blatant yet decision that was wrong at the time? That's what gets to me. And I think there needs to be a root and branch overhaul of, first of all, refereeing in Scotland. I think we need to look at professional referees. I think we need to look at referees declaring their allegiances as they do south of the border. Now, I know people have said, well, that will launch a massive target on some refs' backs. Well, that, for me, who cares? It's not going to happen, because it's south of the border. EPL refs and English Championship refs, EFL refs, have to declare before the start of the season which team they support. Therefore, they are not allowed to referee any games involving that team or that could affect that team. So, which is how it should be. You know, even any human has a natural bias towards a certain team if they follow them. I couldn't referee a Celtic game, okay? Even if it was Celtic versus Dundee, Celtic versus Aberdeen, Celtic versus Bayern Munich in the Champions League, Celtic versus Manchester United, both teams I hate. I couldn't referee those games because I would be naturally biased to give everything against Celtic because I hate them. That's just the way it is as a fan. But it's also the SFA panel, review panel. Is there a better way of doing that? Should we have more independence on that and less of the SFA on that? Also, the VAR system needs a huge overhaul in terms of the people who watch these games. Now, for me, ex-players and people who are trained solely for VAR should be used in the VAR process, not referees watching it on a computer screen, who are far more likely to back their own kind than actually take an objective decision. So for me, it's 2 different jobs. Refereeing on the pitch and watching a game on a TV screen and reviewing decisions on a TV screen is 2 completely different, for me, different things. And you've got to have 2 levels of specialty to be able to do that. Now, I know that the refs have help with VAR officials and VAR technologists and all that, but I do think there should be a difference in terms of who is in the VAR truck or at Clydesdale House watching these games and VAR reviewing them, as to those who run around on the pitch on a Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday, Monday, whenever the games take place these days, guys. Let me know your thoughts on this. And like I said, let me know your thoughts on the fact the SFA have finally come out and said that the decision to send off Sterling was wrong. Why it took so long for them to admit that, God only knows. Guys, thank you for watching. As always, guys, please smash that sub. And on the way out, 2 things I always ask of you. Number 1, smash the like. it beats the algorithm. And number two, remember always, we are the people.